the share button. Let's get this out to more people. 7 o'clock Eastern, Bernie will be live for his town hall on oligarchy. I wanted to come live before his town hall because I want to talk to you. I want to get your stories out there about oligarchy. I want to get your stories out there about how the rigged system in this country is killing people, is squeezing people, is making you have to decide between groceries this week or medication for yourself, is making you have to decide between doing something for yourself or paying one bill or paying your student loan off, paying for your kids' college savings or paying for, your daycare. There's so many choices that have to be made because this country is rigged. The system is rigged against you. And I'm not a politician. I'm a journalist, but I call it like I see it. So as the media hyperventilates about Russiagate, as I like to say, and as I did a video earlier, they're now talking about Cold War 2.0 that is being said on cable news. They're now saying this is worse than the Cold War. Well, who's covering the fact that you can't pay your healthcare bills? Who's covering the fact that the CEO of Wells Fargo, who is still defrauding minorities and other customers, just got an insane bonus? Who's covering that? Who's covering the fact that water is being privatized around the country and contamination is being shown around the country because we live in an oligarchy where the plutocrats who buy off the government officials run the system? Well, we're going to talk about it tonight. And I want to show you some of Bernie's article that preceded his town hall before I take your questions, comments. And by the way, guys, if you don't know, I'm going to put it here in the chat. If you don't know, I have a new Patreon where you could support me. It's my reporting Patreon, different than my book Patreon. Let me just type it in here for you. This is what's going to keep me independent, and it's also what's going to keep me, eventually it's going to become my new network that I'm launching. We have a name, we have a logo, we are going out to investors hopefully this week, and eventually my Patreon will evolve into the company's Patreon. We want to launch a company, we want to launch a media revolution answering to you, the people. Not corporate sponsors, not big advertisers, but you, the people. So I hope you'll go check out my Patreon. I have a podcast now. It's on the Patreon for patrons. We have a daily video diary from me where I'm giving you all the behind-the-scenes access of what's going on with the company. I also, today in my video diary, talked about my constipation. TMI. Just keeping it real. I say keep it real. And I'll pull back as you tell me you don't want to hear about it. So, definitely check out the Patreon if you can, and share it too. Oh, Vaseline is your username? Vaseline said, hopefully progressive investors. I just want to mention, I like your name. I think it's funny. I don't know what it means. I know what Vaseline is, but I digress. No, I'm not taking money from David Brock. I'm not taking money from Democratic Party plutocrats. I'm not taking money from George Soros. I'm not taking money from David Koch. No. Not happening. Oh, my favorite troll just got on. Jerry Ross is going to win troll of what are we in? The 2010s? Jerry Ross is the #1 troll I've ever had. I have trolls who accuse me of very, very vile things that I didn't do. I have trolls that, say I'm ugly, but Jerry Ross is the most consistent troll I've ever had. Thank you for joining me, Jerry. But I want to read you just some of Bernie's piece so you know what he's going to be talking about tonight. Let me share my screen. Oh, no, not that. Let me share my screen here. Hold on. La-da-dee. There we go. So, the corporate media ignores the rise of oligarchy. The rest of us shouldn't. Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie, again, 7 o'clock Eastern, will be doing a town hall on the issue of oligarchy. If you just came to this late, I believe it's going to be streaming on the Guardian's website. I think the Young Turks are streaming it. I believe Now This News is also streaming it. So you guys definitely tune in to watch it. And I think that it's going to be a super, super important topic. Now, let me read some of this to you. All right? Bernie. The rapid rise of oligarchy and wealth income inequality is the great moral, economic, and political issue of our time. Yet, it gets almost no coverage from the corporate media. You think? You think, Bernard? How often do network newscasts report on the 40 million Americans living in poverty, or that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation on earth? How often does the media discuss the reality that our society today is more equal than at any time since the 1920s, with the top 0.1% now owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%? How often have you heard the media report that stories of millions of people who today are working longer hours for lower wages than was the case some 40 years ago? Bernie, you missed it. In between them reporting on the next Cold War and Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump's wild romp and sex life, I think they mentioned something about oligarchy. Just kidding. How often has ABC, CBS, or NBC discussed the role of the Koch brothers and other billionaires play in creating a political system which allows the rich and the powerful to significantly control elections and the legislative process in Congress? Here's where I disagree with Bernard. He mentions the Koch brothers in a lot of his speeches and his pieces that he writes, but it's not just the Koch brothers. A lot of Democratic plutocrats own the government. So let's not just keep it at the Koch brothers. They are terrible. They are toxic, but it ain't just the Koch brothers. I promise you that. I'll read you a little bit more. You've heard this before from Bernie Sanders. Sadly, the answer to the question, almost never. The corporate media has failed to let the American people fully understand the economic forces shaping their lives and causing many of them to work 2 or 3 jobs, while CEOs make hundreds of times more than they do. Instead, day after day, 24/7, we're inundated with the relentless dramas of the Trump White House, Stormy Daniels, and the latest piece of political gossip. We urgently need to discuss the reality of today's economy and political system and fight to create an economy that works for everyone and not just the 1%. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more with the Vermont senator, a progressive who has been saying the same exact thing for 40 years. I think that Bernie Sanders hits the nail on the head. It's sometimes why I don't particularly understand why he goes on corporate media so much, but hey, he could go wherever he wants.